There are moments in life when something shifts beneath the surface before you even have words to describe it. You feel it in the way a conversation suddenly goes quiet. You notice it in the way certain people begin watching you more carefully than before. You sense it in the air around you, like a storm gathering in the distance that nobody has officially announced yet. This is one of those moments for you. Something is moving in the unseen world around your connection, and whether you fully understand it yet or not, the truth is beginning to find its way toward the surface. There are conversations happening that you have not been invited into. There are questions being asked about you in rooms you have never entered. People who care about your special person are trying to figure out why your presence has affected them so deeply, why your name seems to carry weight even in your absence, and why the connection between the two of you refuses to quietly disappear no matter how much time passes or how much distance gets placed between you. These are not small questions. They are the kinds of questions people ask when they already sense that something significant is happening but cannot yet bring themselves to accept it. Your special person has a sister. And recently, that sister did something that reveals just how deeply your energy has reached into that family. She took your photo to a psychic. Now think about what that means for a moment. She did not do this casually. She did not stumble into a conversation about you by accident. She made a deliberate decision to seek outside answers about who you are and what kind of force you represent in her sibling's life. She walked into that reading with something already formed in her heart, some conclusion she had already half made, some suspicion she was hoping to have confirmed. Maybe she expected the psychic to say that you were trouble. Maybe she hoped to hear something she could bring back as evidence, as justification for the doubts and warnings she had already been quietly offering your special person. She arrived expecting to leave with ammunition. But that is not what happened. The moment the psychic looked at your image, something changed in the room. The psychic became still. Not the kind of stillness that comes from having nothing to say, but the kind that comes when someone encounters something they were not fully prepared for. A chill moved through the air. The sister felt it before a single word was spoken. And then the psychic looked up and said something the sister had absolutely not prepared herself to receive. The psychic said that you are a divinely chosen soul. That your entrance into your special person's life was not random, not a coincidence, and not something that time or interference could simply erase. The psychic said that the bond between you and your special person was created by something larger than either of you, that it was sacred and protected, and that no one had the power to break what heaven had intentionally brought together. The sister sat with that. She had come in looking for one thing and walked out carrying something completely different. She had arrived hoping to find a reason to dismiss you and instead received a description of you as someone specifically chosen to transform her sibling's life. That is not an easy thing to sit with when you were already prepared to be suspicious, already prepared to feel justified in your doubts. Now, before anything else, there is something important that needs to be said directly to you. A sacred connection is a beautiful and meaningful thing, but it is never a reason to stay somewhere that is hurting you. It is never an excuse to accept confusion, inconsistency, emotional distance, or disrespect. Heaven may bring two souls together for a powerful purpose, but both people still have to show up. Both people still have to choose honesty. Both people still have to behave in ways that honor the bond rather than just claiming it exists. A spiritual connection without real, grounded, consistent behavior is not a partnership. It is a feeling. And feelings alone cannot build a life. So hold this message with open hands, not clenched ones. Let it inspire you without letting it trap you. Let it remind you of your worth without letting it convince you that waiting indefinitely is the same as being faithful to something sacred. Your power in this connection has never been about control. You have never needed to manage your special person or pull them toward you through strategy or manipulation. The power you carry is far more natural and far more honest than that. Your power is the power of presence. The power of being someone who is genuinely, deeply, authentically themselves. And that kind of presence does something to people who have spent years learning how to hide. Before they met you, your special person had become very good at managing their emotional life from a safe distance. They had learned how to move through the world with a smile that did not always reach their eyes. They had filled their schedule with noise and activity so that quiet moments, where feelings might surface, were rare and brief. They had taught themselves to need no one, or at least to appear that way. They built walls around the most vulnerable parts of themselves and called those walls independence. They called those walls strength. And for a long time, that strategy worked well enough. People accepted the performance because it was a convincing one. Then you arrived. And something about you refused to interact only with the performance. Without trying to force anything, without demanding access they were not ready to give, you somehow reached past the carefully constructed exterior and touched something real. You noticed things about them that other people walked right past. You heard the slight change in their voice when they were carrying something heavy but claiming to be fine. You sensed the exhaustion behind their laughter. You recognized the loneliness beneath their confidence. You did not need them to explain it in words because you could feel it, and they knew that you could feel it. That is both a gift and a terrifying thing for someone who has survived by keeping their inner world hidden. Being truly seen by another person requires you to stop hiding from yourself. It requires you to acknowledge the things you have been carrying quietly for years. And for someone who built their entire emotional survival strategy around not doing that, being seen so clearly by you was simultaneously the most meaningful and most frightening experience they had encountered. So they pulled back. They created distance. They acted as though the connection was smaller than it actually was. They behaved, at times, as though you mattered less to them than you clearly did. And you felt that. You lived inside the confusion of it. You replayed conversations trying to identify exactly where things changed, exactly what you said or did that pushed them away. You questioned whether you were too much, too intense, too sensitive, too present. You carried a weight of self-blame that was never yours to carry. But here is what you need to understand about distance. Distance is not always the absence of feeling. Sometimes it is the opposite. Sometimes people run fastest from the person who touches them most deeply, because getting close to that person means getting close to everything inside themselves that they have not yet dealt with. It means confronting old wounds, old fears, old patterns of behavior that have been quietly controlling their choices for years. Your presence, your love, your clarity became a mirror. And in that mirror, your special person could see not only the beauty they carried but also the places where they had been running, hiding, and choosing familiar pain over uncertain growth. That is a profound and difficult thing to face. Some people rise to meet it. Some people run harder in the opposite direction. And some people go back and forth, which may be exactly what you have been experiencing, the push and pull of someone who wants the connection but fears what accepting it fully will require of them. The psychic sensed all of this. She saw a soul in the middle of a significant internal struggle. She saw your special person caught between the version of themselves that felt safe and the version that was being called forward by your presence. She saw that your love had become a kind of catalyst, not because you forced anything, but simply because your authenticity created a space where pretending became harder than it used to be. Their sister may have felt unsettled by what she heard because she has likely noticed these changes in your special person too. She has probably seen how differently they carry themselves when your name enters a conversation. She has noticed the restlessness, the way something shifts in their expression, the way they cannot seem to simply move forward and stop thinking about you even during periods when you are not in contact. She recognized that the connection had taken root in a way that ordinary connections do not, and that frightened her. When we love someone, we sometimes feel threatened by the people who change them, especially if we do not fully understand the nature of that change. She may have interpreted your influence as something to be suspicious of. She may have seen your boundaries as arrogance. She may have mistaken your spiritual confidence for manipulation or your emotional depth for an attempt to control her sibling. People often fear what they cannot categorize, and you are not easy to categorize. You do not fit the simple story she may have been telling herself about who you are and what you want. But the psychic could not confirm that story. Because the truth of your energy is not something that can be disguised from someone who is genuinely looking with clear eyes. The psychic saw that you did not arrive to take anyone away from their family or to destroy what already existed. You arrived to illuminate something. To bring enough light into a dark place that what had been hidden could finally be seen and addressed. You did not create the wounds inside your special person. You did not plant the fears or build the walls. Those existed long before you arrived. What you did was care enough, and be present enough, that those wounds became visible rather than continuing to operate silently beneath the surface. That is not damage. That is healing beginning to happen. And healing is messy and uncomfortable, and sometimes it looks like chaos before it looks like progress. Heaven wants you to hear something clearly right now. You have spent too long questioning yourself. You have spent too many hours in the middle of the night going over every detail, every interaction, every silence, searching for what you did wrong, searching for how you could have been different in a way that would have produced a different outcome. You have made yourself smaller in your own mind than you actually are. You have entertained doubts about your worth that were never based in truth. You are not too much. You are not the problem. You are someone whose authenticity demanded authenticity in return, and that demand, though never spoken as a demand, was felt. And some people are not yet ready to meet that. Your special person knows that loving you fully would require them to transform. Not because you placed unreasonable demands on them, but because love that is real, love that is honest and consistent and present, requires a person to show up as their real self. It requires them to stop offering half of their attention and all of their excuses. It requires emotional responsibility, the willingness to say I was wrong, the courage to be vulnerable, the patience to communicate rather than disappear. Your special person could feel that loving you would mean releasing old habits and closing chapters they had been pretending were already closed. That is a large thing to ask of someone who has been avoiding exactly that kind of reckoning for years. And so they may have hesitated. They may have stepped back right at the moment things were becoming real. They may have convinced themselves that what they felt was too complicated or too risky or too much to navigate. They may have told themselves stories about why the timing was wrong or why it could not work, when the real truth is simply that they were afraid. afraid of what choosing you would require them to become. Their sister noticed all of it. She noticed the way your name still lived in her siblings' daily awareness even when you were not present. She noticed how they could not seem to fully put you down, even when they insisted they were moving on. And this is why she went looking for answers. She wanted someone to tell her that what her sibling was feeling was not as significant as it appeared. She wanted permission to dismiss the connection as something manageable, something that could be advised away with the right words. Instead, she heard that some connections leave a permanent mark on a soul because they were sent to teach something that cannot be learned any other way. But here is where wisdom must enter the conversation, because inspiration without discernment can lead you somewhere you do not actually want to go. Spiritual words are meant to awaken something in you, not to replace your judgment. They are meant to remind you of your worth, not to convince you to wait in a situation that is actively harming your peace. A beautiful message delivered at exactly the right moment is still just a message. What matters most is what you observe in reality. What matters is how people actually behave toward you when the spiritual language quiets down and ordinary life resumes. Does your special person communicate with you honestly? Do they show up consistently? Do they speak your name with respect when others are present? Do they stand beside you when confusion or misunderstanding arises, or do they go silent and let you navigate those moments alone? Do they take responsibility for the ways their behavior has affected you, or do they deflect and minimize and ask you to simply understand? These are the questions that reveal the truth of a connection. Not the intensity of the feeling, not the history of the bond, not the poetry of the spiritual language surrounding it. The truth lives in the ordinary details. It lives in whether someone calls when they say they will, whether they tell you the truth even when it is uncomfortable, whether they treat you with the same care in public that they express in private. You are worthy of love that shows up in reality. Not love that is reserved for moments of sentiment and described beautifully but then lived out poorly. You deserve a love that is visible, consistent, honest, and chosen openly. If your special person is genuinely ready to honor what exists between you, they must do more than feel it. They must demonstrate it. They must communicate rather than fall silent when things become difficult. They must protect your name when it is being discussed in rooms where you are not present. They must stop allowing the fears and opinions of others to make decisions that belong only to the two of you. They must look at the patterns in their own behavior that have caused confusion and pain and take real, visible steps to change them. Sacred feelings require sacred action. Without that, the bond remains beautiful in theory but broken in practice. You have already done enough chasing. You have already done enough explaining yourself, enough proving your worth, enough reaching toward someone who kept stepping just slightly out of reach. Heaven is not asking you to chase anymore. Heaven is asking you to become still. To stop making yourself available for connection without commitment. To stop interpreting potential as the same thing as presence. Let your special person show you who they are becoming. Give them the space to either rise to meet what exists between you or to reveal that they are not yet capable of it. You cannot do that work for them. You cannot want their growth more than they want it for themselves. You cannot carry the relationship on your own and call it partnership. What you can do is continue becoming more fully yourself. You can return to the dreams and goals and creative work you may have set aside while you were trying to understand this connection. You can rebuild the friendships and the daily joys that got smaller when your focus narrowed. You can invest in your own healing, your own clarity, your own sense of direction. Not as a strategy to make someone jealous or come running back, but because your life is genuinely worth living fully regardless of what anyone else decides. When your world becomes rich with purpose, love stops feeling like something you are desperately trying to secure and starts feeling like something you can welcome with patience and discernment. That shift changes everything about how you move through life. The sister may eventually approach you differently. She may begin watching you with different eyes once she has had time to sit with what the psychic told her. She may start to notice that your presence does not actually carry the threat she imagined. She may observe the ways your energy brings out something clearer and more honest in her sibling and slowly begin to understand that you were never trying to take anyone away from their family. You were encouraging someone to become more fully themselves, which is a different thing entirely. But whether she understands this today, tomorrow, or years from now, or perhaps never, your path remains unchanged. You do not need her approval. You do not need to perform your worth for anyone's benefit. You do not need to defend yourself against every misunderstanding or chase down every rumor and dismantle it with arguments. The most powerful thing you can do when people are questioning your character is to simply continue being exactly who you are. Your consistency will speak more convincingly than any explanation you could offer. Remain steady when your name is being discussed. Stay calm when you become aware that someone is trying to create a particular story about you. A person who is truly secure in their own truth does not need to fight every battle. Some things resolve themselves when you simply refuse to become destabilized by them. And through all of this, something profound has been happening within you, something that may have been quietly unfolding while your attention was focused on understanding your special person. You have been awakening too. You entered this connection believing that your role was to bring something to their life, to see them, to understand them, to awaken what had been sleeping inside them. And perhaps that is part of the truth. But the other part, the part that may be even more important, is what this experience has been teaching you about yourself. You have been learning that love does not require you to lose yourself. You have been discovering that your own feelings, your own needs, your own intuition deserve to be taken seriously. You have been understanding that being deeply devoted to someone does not mean making yourself endlessly available to confusion and inconsistency. You have been finding out where your actual boundaries are, not the ones you thought you had but the ones you discover only when they are genuinely tested. This is growth. This is the awakening that heaven is describing when it speaks of transformation. Not only what is changing in your special person, but what is changing in you. Pain did not turn you bitter. Disappointment did not close your heart. Confusion did not make you cruel. You stayed soft in the places that deserve softness while finding strength in the places that required it. That is not a small thing. That is actually a rare and beautiful way to move through difficulty, and it is part of why your energy feels distinctive to the people around you. Your special person senses this. Even in the moments when they are behaving in ways that are confusing or distant or frustrating, on some level they know that what you offer is not ordinary. They know that not everyone would have stayed as open as you did. They know that not everyone would have seen them as clearly, understood them as patiently, or cared as genuinely. And part of what frightens them is the awareness that if they truly let you go, they may spend a long time looking for someone who reaches them the same way and not finding it. That fear is real. But fear is not love. And someone choosing to stay connected to you purely out of fear of losing you is not the same as someone choosing to love you with courage and clarity and genuine commitment. Do not settle for someone who keeps you at the edge of their life because they are afraid to let you all the way in but also afraid to fully let you go. You deserve someone who chooses you from a place of desire, not someone who holds on from a place of uncertainty. Divine timing is something people talk about often, but it is frequently misunderstood. It does not mean that you pause your life and hold your breath waiting for someone to be ready. It means that you trust the process while actively living. It means that you continue building your life, pursuing what matters to you, growing into the person you are becoming, and allow the right connections to find you in that forward motion rather than in a frozen waiting place. If your special person is truly meant to walk beside you, they will not need you to pause everything while they figure out their own heart. They will show up. They will communicate. They will make the connection visible and real and chosen. If they cannot yet do those things, then the timing is simply not right regardless of how powerful the bond feels. And that is information worth having, even when it is painful to receive. Trust what behavior shows you. When someone returns with only beautiful words and familiar feelings but no real evidence of change, let discernment guide you. When someone returns with accountability, with honesty about their own patterns, with genuine effort and consistency over time, then allow the connection to rebuild slowly and carefully. Forgiveness can happen quickly because forgiveness is something you give yourself as much as you give another person. But trust is something different entirely. Trust rebuilds in small moments repeated many times. Trust is proven over weeks and months, not announced in a single conversation. You are here to choose yourself first. That is the message underneath all the other messages. You are here to honor the connection between you and your own soul before you try to honor any connection with another person. When you do that, when you treat your own inner life with the same care and attention you have been pouring towards someone else, everything else begins to find its proper place. You stop needing someone to confirm your worth because you have stopped outsourcing that confirmation. You stop chasing clarity from people who are still confused themselves because you have begun trusting your own understanding. You stop waiting for someone to choose you because you have already fully chosen yourself, and from that place of wholeness, love becomes something you welcome with open eyes rather than something you desperately reach for with closed ones. So carry your head high, beloved. Move forward with the understanding that nothing that is genuinely meant for you can be permanently kept from you by another person's fear or a family member's disapproval or a moment of confusion or distance. What is truly yours will find you when the conditions are right and both parties are genuinely ready. And what does not ultimately arrive in the form you hoped for was perhaps always directing you towards something even better suited to the person you are becoming. Let heaven hold what you cannot control. Let go of the need to manage the sister's opinion, to decode the psychic's words, to understand every layer of your special person's internal struggle. Release the weight of trying to make something happen that requires two willing people to bring it into existence. Walk forward in your own light. Keep your standards exactly where they belong. Stay open to love without making yourself a sacrifice for it. Trust that your worth does not fluctuate based on whether someone recognizes it or not. You are already whole. You are already carrying everything you need. The love that is truly meant for you will not ask you to betray yourself to receive it. It will meet you in honesty and choose you in clarity and stay with you through the ordinary difficulty of real life. That love exists. It may be closer than you realize. And you will be ready for it when it arrives because you have been doing the most important work all along, the work of becoming fully, peacefully, unapologetically yourself. Type 111 if this reached you at the exact moment you needed to hear it. Type Amen if you trust that heaven is guiding you toward the love that chooses you openly, honestly, and without hesitation.